Hey Dragon Slayers! Today's video is about insulin's effect on your metabolism. At least some of the metabolic benefit of controlling insulin is a result of demonstrable changes in metabolic rate. This is not a recent discovery either. Two of the greatest scientists in the last century were the first to bring to light insulin's ability to dampen metabolic rate. Elliot P, Joslin and Francis G. Benedict, each now famous for their work in endocrinology and metabolism, respectively noted in 1912 that metabolic rate in untreated insulin deficient diabetes was roughly 15% higher compared with similar body weight subjects with normal insulin. The same thing can be seen in people with type 2 diabetes treated with insulin. It slows their metabolic rate. To understand how insulin affects metabolic rate, let's look at brown fat. Previously, we highlighted how brown fat helps us burn fat. The metabolic benefits of carbohydrate restriction is not limited to just controlling insulin. While insulin inhibits brown fat, ketones activate brown fat. Because of this combination, it's little surprise that an insulin controlling carbohydrate restricted diet provides more metabolic wiggle room regarding calorie balance than a traditional diet. This could be why people adhering to a calorie unrestricted, low carbohydrate diet can lose more fat than people following the classic calorie restricted, low fat diet, even if potential eating is significantly more calories. The best example of this is a study that rotated obese and overweight subjects through four diets that differed in composition of fat and carbohydrates but were identical in calories. Metabolic rate measured by resting energy expenditure was the lowest during the lowest fat diet and increased steadily through the four diets as fat content increased and carbohydrate content decreased. In the end, the metabolic rate of subjects when on the low carbohydrate, high fat regimen was roughly 80 calories per day higher than the same subjects who adhered to a low fat, high carb diet. More recently, well controlled studies conducted both at the National Institutes of Health and Harvard University have found the same to be true. When in ketosis, metabolic rate is increased by roughly 100 to 300 calories per day. In the Harvard study, participants were divided into three groups: a high carbohydrate group, which was about 60% carbs and 20% fat, a moderate carbohydrate group, which was about 40% carbs and 40% fat, and a low carbohydrate group, which consisted of about 20% carbs and 60% fat. Additionally, this study used a highly sophisticated technique to measure metabolic rate. Let me elaborate. Traditionally, when researchers measure metabolic rate, we either make the person lie down under a space helmet like device, which is indirect calorimetry, or they spend time in a claustrophobic inducing small room, which is direct calorimetry. Both have obvious problems, since in real life people don't limit their movement like that, ever, unless perhaps sleeping. The Harvard study, led by Dr. David Ludwig, used a technique called the double labeled water technique, a relatively new and very clever method of determining metabolic rate that allows the subject to life that allows the subject to live life as usual by drinking a unique type of marked water. Researchers measured the rate at which the body uses that water, which is driven by the metabolic rate. Metabolic rate changed inversely with carbohydrate consumption. The group eating the highest carbohydrates had the lowest metabolic rate. while the group eating the lowest carbohydrates had the highest metabolic rate. In fact, the group that started with the highest fasting insulin levels experienced the greatest increase in metabolic rate with the lowest carbohydrate consumption. This group also had the greatest drop in blood triglycerides and the greatest rise in HDL cholesterol. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it really helps the channel out. And remember, guys, that together, you and I will slay the dreaded diabetes dragon.